Group sex parties, casual hookups, transactional or favor-based sex. What the was happening in Conyers? Let's be honest, the people in Conyers pretty nice, you know. How come this place got like syphilis outbreak? Yeah, they were You're an asshole, dude. In the late 90s, Conyers gained massive national attention for very negative reasons. These sexual activities led to the infamous Conyers syphilis outbreak, which caught massive national attention because the population that was affected was actually high schoolers, teenagers between the ages of 14 to 18 years old. But what were these kids doing? Why? Who raised them? Why were they having so much sex? Didn't they have something better to do instead of fucking and sucking? I watched the documentary The Lost Children of Rockdale County, which explored the underlying factors of this crisis. So now we're visiting the town to see if it looks any different 20 years or 29 years after the whole crisis. A healthcare worker believed to be a pediatrician started seeing a lot of patients diagnosed with syphilis, which is a disease rarely diagnosed in suburban teens. Concerned about the increasing cases, the doctor reported it to the public health authorities, which got the CDC involved, who launched a epidemiological investigation to try to track the whole issue and what was happening. It began with contact tracing, interviewing affected teens to try to identify their sexual partners. This led to the discovery of a web that involved around 200 teenagers involved in these sexual activities and risks of syphilis. Some of them as young as 12 or 13 years old, which mostly were students of the Heritage High School in Conyers, Georgia, which was also involved in a school shooting a couple of years later. But that's a story that we might visit some other time. These investigations uncovered that these kids were having sex with multiple partners. They were engaging in sex parties, and they were meeting up in secret locations. The scale of the outbreak was alarming, which uncovered around 17 confirmed cases of syphilis among teenagers. It looks kind of nice here. We're visiting Conyers, see how it looks. The reason why I wanted to visit Conyers is because when I checked the documentary, The Lost Children of Rockdale County, some of the kids mentioned that there was nothing to do in Conyers, that it was so boring, and the best thing they could do is engage in sexual activities, which says a lot about Conyers, if I'm being honest. But the documentary does explore other reasons. Peer pressure, and acceptance. It just so happened to be a popular activity that was happening in high school, and some of the kids didn't want to feel like they were missing out, so they were being part of these activities. As well as curiosity and experimentation, the teenage years are years where your body starts to develop and you start get curious about your sexuality. And with all the things that were happening around at the time, it seemed like the perfect time for these kids to start experimenting. Desire for attention and affection. Some of these kids come from troubled homes. They were not receiving the proper quality time, quality attention at home. So they were looking for that attention and affection and validation through those sexual activities. Influence of media and pop culture. The documentary highlighted how the pop culture at the time, music, movies, and TVs affected the teenagers' perspective at the time.
So good looking. I don't want the people to stop looking at him.
You're gonna give me 1 million views, okay?
You're the key. You're the key for this video. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Let's be honest, the people in Conyers pretty nice, How come this place got like syphilis outbreak? Yeah, they were You're an asshole, dude. Family dynamics and emotional struggles. Like I mentioned, some of these teens come from troubled families, At the time, it was very popular to overwork, work too much. So these teens didn't feel that they could rely on their parents. Alcohol and drug use. It's very well known that alcohol and drug use inhibits your decision making. So that definitely affected the decisions these teens were making at the time, getting involved into these orgies and sex parties and stuff, Like I mentioned, during the documentary, some of the teens mentioned that Conyers is a very boring city. There is apparently no options of nothing to do here. There is a massive lack of meaningful activities. I don't know if at the time the town will look like this or if it was even an option for teens to visit, but I do have to admit it looks pretty old, so I don't think a 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old will be having fun visiting this old town road, because it's a very small town, you know. It's very, very small. Like, there's only like strip. It is like a strip that is divided by a road of buildings, and you can either walk on one side or you can walk on the other side of the street. But for the most part, there is nothing fun in these buildings. Look, the Chapter Law Firm. How the fuck a teenager is gonna have fun at the fucking Chapter Law Firm? You know what I mean? And it's just like that. There is only a restaurant. I'm not gonna lie. It feels kind of nice to walk here, you know. So maybe I'm being a little exaggerated with all that stuff. The thing is, let's be honest, it looks pretty nice here. But still, what is it here to do? We have again another office space. It doesn't really feel like in the town there is activities for teenagers to develop. During the documentary, some of the kids mentioned that the only things that they will find entertaining to do is either hang at the plaza with the movie theater, the bowling alley, and that's it. Apparently, at the time in 1996, those were the only things that you could do in Conyers. Either just hang at the plaza where the movie theater is at, hang at the movie theater, or hang at the bowling alley. So we're gonna go and visit those. Look. They have a karaoke. So I don't know how recent this could be. Probably this karaoke wasn't open in 1996, you know. Maybe if this karaoke was open back in 1996, the whole syphilis outbreak wouldn't have happened. I guess that's something important to take into consideration when you're designing your city, you know, to make sure that there are proper spaces for kids to be kids. So we're here at the plaza, you know, where some of the things used to hang out, and just kind of look at it. We only have like a Chuck E. Cheese, a AMC, and then there is only like places to buy stuff, you know. And when you're a teen, you're a broke-ass teen, and you have no money. How are you gonna have fun buying shit that you can't even afford? This reminds me of something that somebody told me about Conyers once, is that in the movie theater once they found a bunch of used condoms. Did you see anybody having sex in there? All right, now we have one more place to visit, the bowling alley. Let's go. A lot of people having fun, dude. Hell yeah. People is having fun inside, but it does look kind of like, outdated, you know. But shout out to people for having fun. Honestly, it's one of the only few fun activities interesting to do here in Conyers, you know. If anybody from Conyers watching this video, please let me know of any fun activity to do in Conyers and I'll go check it out. But the biggest reason why this whole crisis even happened is the decay of family roles in America. You know, with the rise of entertainment media and economic changes, there was also a rise in lazy parenting, you know. Work hard, work long hours, you know, don't be present in your kid's life. When you get home, you're just watching TV until you fall asleep and let the kids figure it out by themselves. Some of the examples during the documentary is parents working long hours or taking long work trips, leaving their kids unattended, which showcase huge family roles and priority issues, as if working was more important than raising your kids or being present in your kid's life or expecting a school to raise your kids. I remember during the documentary, there is one specific parent that he finds out that his daughter is involved in those sex scandals, and he says, you know, I have no idea how my daughter got involved in this. There is a TV in every room in the house, as if a TV is supposed to replace quality time and bonding with your kids, which ties back to terrible family dynamics, emotional struggle, and lack of parental supervision and guidance. That's why the name of the documentary was The Lost Children of Rockdale County. Now, after visiting Conyers in 2025, there is still practically nothing to do. So I wouldn't be surprised if something similar were to happen in Conyers again.